Ah, there it is. That sharp little silence that doesn't belong to any room you've ever stood in. A silence that looks at you before you even speak, because something just shifted, didn't it? A cold greeting for a cold moment. Don't flinch. This is the part where everything finally admits the truth about you. Now listen very, very closely. The most dangerous person in the entire room, the one they all pretend not to see, the one whose reputation is stitched out of whispers, missing files, and unsolved situations, just said your name out loud, not their name, not the favorite, not the legend, yours. And the whole network, every watcher, every lurker, every silent analyst buried in their glowing screens, stopped breathing like someone pulled the oxygen out of reality, because they know something you keep under lock and bone. You are not predictable. You are not containable. You are not finished evolving. You are the paradox they warned each other about. The one who cracks open a timeline with a single movement. The one who turns random choices into domino catastrophes. The one who keeps rising after every version of you was supposed to die. And when your name left that dangerous mouth, oh, the room felt it. Walls shivered, egos folded, eyes froze like prey caught in a sniper's breath, because it wasn't a greeting, it wasn't respect, it wasn't even a threat, it was recognition, the kind predators give to predators. You know what terrifies people the most? Not monsters, not geniuses, not saints or psychopaths. No, it's someone who learns to be all three and switches forms without warning. You're the contradiction they can't decode. Light that remembers being darkness, darkness that still knows how to heal. An angel with fingerprints that match every crime scene of your own rebirth, and they feel it every single time. That's why the network froze. That's why even the dangerous one said your name like a prophecy he didn't want to be right about. Because there's a difference between being feared and being inevitable. You've crossed that line. See, they've studied you in silence. They've collected your habits like artifacts. They've replayed your mistakes in slow motion, searching for cracks. But you're not a puzzle. You're a mutation. Every time they think they've mapped you, you rewrite the map. Every time they predict your next step, you take one they never imagined existed. Every time they assume they've contained your chaos, you reveal it wasn't chaos. It was strategy buried under scars. You evolved through pain. You sharpened through betrayal. You learned silence from suffering and power from the parts of you that refused to die. That's why the room went quiet. They finally realized you're not the threat, you're the shift. The moment where the game stops being fair, where the rules stop making sense, where the watchers become the watched, where the dangerous ones start checking exits and calculating escape routes they never thought they'd need. You want to know the real reason they stopped breathing? Because the most dangerous person in the room didn't speak your name like an enemy. He spoke it like an equal, a mirror, a warning to everyone else. Don't touch that one. Don't provoke that one. Don't even breathe wrong around that one, unless you're ready to feel history rearrange itself around their next decision. And you just stand there, still, silent, steady, like a ghost who finally remembered he used to be a god. They don't understand you, and that's exactly why they fear you. You're not the strongest, you're not the loudest, you're not the most connected, you're something worse. Unpredictable, unbroken, ungovernable. A creature carved from duality, forged in contradictions, hardened in the quiet crucible of every night you should have given up, but didn't. Your name didn't echo through that room. It cut through it. And the network felt the mistake they made trying to box you in. The analysts felt their models warp. The strategists felt their blueprints glitch. Because the moment your name became the center of attention, the entire hierarchy rearranged itself. And suddenly, all their power, all their titles, all their connections meant nothing. Not against someone who can walk into a room full of monsters and make every monster remember they weren't born fearless. So tell me, now that the dangerous one has spoken your name, now that the network refuses to breathe without your permission, now that you've become the anomaly every system failed to anticipate, what do you think happens next? Because I'll tell you a secret the room already knows. When someone like you gets recognized, someone else gets replaced. And they all know who now move, and watch which ones start praying you don't look in their direction next. Oh, you felt that, didn't you? That strange pulse under your ribs, like something ancient just woke up and stretched inside your bones. Good, because we're nowhere near finished. You think the room froze because your name was spoken? No. That was just the spark. The real panic began when you didn't react. See, most people, when danger says their name, they flinch, or smile nervously, or pretend they didn't hear it, or shrink into themselves like collapsing stars. But you stayed impossibly still, like the air around you thickened, waiting to see which version of you would surface. Because you don't have one identity, you have layers, versions, masks made of truth, sharper than lies. And every person in that room, every operative, every strategist, every polished ego hiding behind their titles, they whispered the same terrified question inside their heads. Which one is he right now? The healer? The weapon? The observer? The one who forgives? Or the one who watches quietly, calculates perfectly, and doesn't leave survivors? They don't know. They can't know. That's what breaks them. You're not chaos. You're controlled volatility, a storm with a moral compass that spins unpredictably, an equation with too many variables for any mind to solve. That's why the dangerous one said your name like it carried weight. Not because he wanted to, but because he had to. Even monsters respect the things that can rearrange them, and you've rearranged people your whole life without meaning to. A glance that shifts someone's intentions, a sentence that fractures someone's self-image, a choice that bends someone's fate sideways. And the network has been watching it happen. They've taken notes, subtitles, timestamps. They tried to categorize your every move, but every attempt ends the same. File corrupted, pattern unreadable, subject escaped the model. You know what kind of person breaks every model? A person who was never supposed to exist, a person born from the contradiction of soft heart and sharp instinct, of kindness stitched over cruelty, learned in self-defense, of innocence burned into wisdom. You are the hybrid the world doesn't have a word for. No wonder the dangerous one paused before saying your name. He wasn't calling you. He was acknowledging you. And everyone else? They started calculating how far they could get if you suddenly decided to rise. You didn't even move, and people's lives flashed before their eyes. You didn't speak, and people started confessing sins you never asked about. You didn't shift your expression, and someone in the back whispered, "He knows." That's what you do. Your very existence forces truth out of liars and fear out of predators. Because you're not the safest person in the room, you're the truest. And truth is lethal to people built on pretense. But here's the part they'll never admit. Your name didn't scare them because of your past. It scared them because of your future. Your potential is the kind that governments get nervous about. the kind that corporations try to co-opt, the kind that enemies try to eliminate early, because they can see what you're becoming long before you do. You carry a trajectory that's not linear. It's exponential, compounding, multiplying, accelerating through every pain you refuse to stay wounded from. And the dangerous one? He saw that trajectory. He looked at you the way predators look at storms, not with fear, but with that rare, primal recognition. This one is like me. But here's the twist they can't process. You're not like him. You're not like anyone. He was forged by cruelty. You were forged by duality. He became powerful by destroying. You became powerful by surviving. He learned fear through domination. You learned fear by dismantling your own shadows until they bowed. You are the evolution he never reached, and when someone like that says your name, the whole hierarchy instinctively realigns, because they understand, at a level deeper than thought, if he speaks your name, you're not the apprentice, you're the successor, or the replacement. They're not scared because he recognized you. They're scared because he recognized you too soon, meaning you're rising faster than anyone predicted, meaning the timeline is collapsing toward you, meaning you're no longer part of the story. You're becoming the fulcrum the story turns on. So let me ask you something dangerous. Have you noticed how quiet the room still is? That's not silence. That's anticipation. They're waiting, watching, studying your posture, your breath, your eyes. Because the moment you make a choice, any choice, someone's destiny ends. Someone's throne cracks. Someone's illusion shatters. Someone's entire identity dissolves. You don't even need to attack. You just need to exist. Your presence creates collateral damage in the lives of those who underestimate you. Your name is not a label. It's a warning. When the most dangerous person in the room said it, he didn't crown you. He confirmed what the universe has been whispering behind your back for years. You are the variable that breaks predictions, the anomaly that rewrites structures, the ghost that becomes the kingmaker who becomes the storm. And the storm, it's gathering right now, around you, inside you, waiting for you to stop shrinking into the version of yourself that keeps people comfortable and step into the version that makes them tremble. So go on, take one step, watch who stumbles, watch who kneels, watch who prays. You never turn your eyes their way again, because the most dangerous person said your name, but the most consequential person in the room is you. And still the room hasn't recovered. Do you feel that pressure? That invisible weight sitting on everyone's shoulders except yours? It's because the moment your name slipped out of that dangerous mouth, something ancient clicked into place, like a lock recognizing the key it was carved for. They're not watching you anymore. They're bracing for you. Because when a name carries that much gravity, the world doesn't listen to who said it. The world listens to what the name summons. And your name? It summons consequences, uncomfortable truths, unpredictable shifts, fates rearranged without warning. People underestimate how terrifying unpredictable is. They think unpredictability means random. It doesn't. Unpredictable means you refuse to play by pain's old script. It means no one can control you through the patterns they used before. It means every scar they inflicted on you became a weapon they can't calculate. And that's why the room's oxygen left. That's why even the ones who usually laugh too loud fell into a silence that tasted like fear and doubt, because you weren't shaped by one trauma. You were shaped by the aftermaths, by the versions of yourself that had to be born because the old one was no longer allowed to survive. You didn't grow. You evolved. And evolution terrifies people stuck in survival mode. Look at them. Look at all those eyes trying to pretend they're not glued to you. They're watching like animals at the edge of a forest fire, trying to figure out whether you are the blaze or the thing walking calmly through it. But let's go deeper, to the real reason their hearts paused mid-beat. When the most dangerous person in the room said your name, he didn't say it like he discovered you. He said it like he'd been waiting for you. Like he had been tracking the imbalance, feeling the shift in the air, sensing the arrival of a presence that doesn't fit inside. The old rules. He said it the way generals say the name of a rival. The way wolves acknowledge another predator's scent. The way history whispers a warning before it repeats itself. And the network, the analysts, the observers, the decision-makers hiding behind neutrality, they all suddenly realized they've been dealing with everyone but you. They thought they understood the hierarchy. They thought they knew who to fear, who to follow, who to manipulate. But your name cracked that illusion. Because your name carries silent influence. Your words travel, your intuition spreads, your moves ripple, your presence shifts momentum in rooms you've never walked into. You are a domino they can't map, because you don't fall. You tilt the entire table instead. That's why the dangerous one said your name with that little edge in his voice, that tiny hesitation, that slight dip in tone. He recognized what the others tried to ignore. You are not part of the system. You are its next audit. You're the anomaly that appears once in a generation, not because you're gifted, not because you're chosen, but because life tried every method to break you, and every method only made you sharper. Every betrayal refined your instincts. Every heartbreak expanded your vision. Every failure built the architecture of your resilience. Every loss sculpted the architecture of your darkness. You became someone both sides fear. Someone who has been through too much to be naive, and healed too deeply to be cruel without precision. They can't manipulate you with guilt. You've burned your way through guilt. They can't threaten you with loss. You've already survived worse. They can't control you with fear. You became intimate with fear years ago and learned its language better than its creators. So now the room sits there, still pretending to breathe, still pretending everything's normal, but inside, they're running simulations. What does he want? What does he know? What if he isn't done? What if he's been waiting for this moment? What if everything we thought about him was wrong? And that's the part that eats them alive, because they know your silence is never empty. Your stillness is never passive. Your calm is never weakness. Your calm is the final warning. You are the type of person who can destroy someone's entire strategy by doing absolutely nothing. Just standing there existing raises the stakes of the whole room. You don't intimidate by force. You intimidate by potential. They're afraid of what you might do, what you could do, what you've never done, but are totally capable of. And now they understand. The moment your name was spoken, the moment the room choked on its own silence, the moment the network froze, a new center of gravity formed you. And gravity doesn't negotiate. It pulls, it shifts, it rearranges. People fall, people orbit, people collide. Everything reorganizes around the force strongest in the room. And right now, that force is the person who didn't need power to be feared. Just a name. Your name. The one that made the dangerous person swallow his pride, the network swallow its breath, and the entire environment swallow the truth. You are not the threat they expected. You are the consequence they deserved. Now walk forward, slowly, deliberately. Watch the room make space before you even reach it. And still, after all this time, no one in that room has dared to inhale properly. You ever notice how humans breathe differently around earthquakes? How they hold the air hostage in their lungs as if any sudden exhale might trigger the aftershock? That's what they're doing right now, because you are the aftershock. The dangerous one spoke your name, and everyone else is waiting to see if reality cracks on the next syllable you choose to release. Let's peel back another layer of this moment, the one they're terrified to confront. When your name came out of his mouth, everyone in that room had the exact same intrusive thought. If he knows you, what have you survived? Because predators know predators, sure, but they fear the ones who walked through predators and kept walking. There are scars you don't talk about, stories you don't repeat, nights you don't confess. But the way you stand, the way your face doesn't twitch under tension, the way your eyes stay steady when danger looks at you directly, that tells a story louder than anything you could say. You're the kind of person who had to teach yourself how to stop shaking before the world even knew your hands were trembling. The kind who learned how to smile with a mouth full of broken truths and still look sane enough that nobody noticed the war behind your teeth. The kind who doesn't need to raise their voice, because your presence already speaks in a frequency people feel in their spine. They see all of this. They feel all of this. They've been pretending not to. But when the most dangerous one said your name, he exposed what everyone was trying to hide, that they've all been watching you in secret. They've been tracking the little glitches around your life, how people fold in arguments with you, how rooms shift when you walk in, how things happen around you that shouldn't happen, how you speak things into existence by accident, how your intuition hits too clean, too consistently, how your presence feels like a prophecy waiting for its time stamp. You've been unsettling the ecosystem without even trying, and that's what terrifies them. You don't need theatrics. You don't need intimidation. You don't need to posture. Your existence alone creates tremors. But let's talk about the dangerous one for a moment. He didn't say your name like he had power over you. He said it like he'd finally located the anomaly that's been haunting his calculations. A ghost he couldn't track. A shadow that never matched any surveillance footage. A variable that refused the equation. And you have to understand something crucial. Dangerous people don't fear other dangerous people. They fear people who rewrite the definition. You did that. Not by being violent, not by being chaotic, not by being unhinged, but by being untranslatable. You don't fit into their categories. You break them. You're too calm to be reckless, too decisive to be passive, too intuitive to be manipulated, too self-created to be controlled. You are the quiet apocalypse nobody prepared for because you didn't arrive like a threat. You arrived like an awakening, and now the room sees it. Now the network feels it. Now the dangerous one acknowledges it. You want to know the moment they panicked most? It wasn't when he said your name. It was when you turned your head slightly. Just slightly. And every single person felt their heart stumble. Because suddenly they understood. You're not reacting, you're assessing. And that's the deadliest thing of all. Reactions are human. Assessments are surgical, strategic, predatory. In the most elegant way, you assess like someone who's been hunted before. Someone who learned to read intent faster than people can hide it. Someone who sees right through alliances, manipulations, and masks as if they're made of glass. and regret. That's why the room hasn't recovered. They aren't scared you'll explode. They're scared you'll decide who stays, who breaks, who gets exposed, who gets replaced, who gets erased from relevance without you even touching them. Don't breathe yet. There it is, that silence. The kind that drops on a room when everyone finally realizes you weren't the one being studied. You were the one doing the studying. You feel it, don't you? That shift in the air, that tilt in the floor, that invisible spotlight tightening around your spine like a verdict whispered through the vents. Because the moment you moved, the moment you acted, every analyst, every watchdog, every panel of experts suddenly froze like prey, realizing the predator wasn't in the shadows. It was right in front of them the entire time. And now, bro, analysts are scrubbing every frame, and the more they look, the less it makes sense. They're in those little surveillance rooms right now, replaying you at quarter speed, half speed, freeze frame, enhanced, zoomed, inverted, and every time they think they're getting closer to understanding you, they end up with less than they started with, because you weren't moving like a person. You were moving like a contradiction wearing skin. You weren't following logic. Logic was following you, and it's eating them alive. They expected a simple pattern, one they'd chart, map, decode, reduce. But you broke the ruler they were measuring you with. You shattered the lens they tried to observe you through. You made the whole damn algorithm blink first. They've got 100 paused frames of your face, and every single one tells a different story. One looks calm, the next looks feral, another looks divine, another looks like a war crime with a heartbeat. They can't reconcile it. They can't categorize it. They can't box you without the box melting. Because you're not one thing. You're the collision of things, light and dark, saint and psychopath, angel and demon, a blessing disguised as a threat, and a threat disguised as a prophecy. And that paradox, that's what terrifies them. Because people like them, the analysts, the watchers, the experts, they need the world to be predictable. They need behavior to have rules. They need humans to sit neatly on a graph. But when you showed up, their graphs caught fire. They're whispering among themselves now. Why does every frame contradict the last? What is he doing that our tools can't track? Is this deception or instinct? Did we just witness a fluke or a phenomenon? And every time they think they've found the answer, you give them another reason to doubt it, because what they're missing, what they'll never understand, is that you didn't evolve by comfort. You didn't grow in the daylight like they did. You grew under pressure. You grew in the dark. You grew in the silence no one else could survive. You grew through wounds they've never even imagined. Your unpredictability isn't random. It's the language of someone who lived through storms they've only read about. Pain taught you nuance, fear taught you timing. Isolation taught you perception. And betrayal taught you precision. You're not chaotic. You're not impulsive. You're not reckless. You're aware in ways they've never trained for. You read a room like a surgeon reads an MRI. You absorb threats like their weather reports. You feel intent the way others feel. Temperature. So of course the footage doesn't make sense. How do you measure someone who isn't reacting, but anticipating? How do you quantify intuition sharpened by 1,000 nights of loneliness? How do you analyze someone who doesn't follow patterns because they are the pattern? That's what burns them. Not that you moved strangely, not that you acted unpredictably, but that you revealed something they've always feared. Some people aren't playing the same game at all. While they studied behavior, you studied silence. While they mapped psychology, you mapped deception. While they learned rules, you learned exceptions. And that's why every frame of you contradicts the last, because you weren't captured on tape. You were summoned. You weren't performing. You were remembering. And they can't study that. They can't decode that. They can't cage that. So they keep scrubbing the footage, desperate to find the flaw, the glitch, the crack, the giveaway, the tell. But you don't have tells. You are the tell that tells nothing, a walking paradox with a pulse, a contradiction wearing destiny like a second skin, a ghost that learned how to draw blood. And that's why they're scared, because the deeper they stare into the footage, into you, the more they realize the truth. You're not hard to understand. You're impossible to predict. And unpredictable things rewrite history. Unpredictable things shift power. Unpredictable things break systems. Unpredictable things reshape worlds. Unpredictable things become legends. And legends aren't meant to make sense. They're meant to make impact. So go on. Let them scrub the footage until their eyes bleed. Let them analyze every frame until the timeline collapses. Let them chase the pattern that keeps slipping through their fingers. Because every second they stare at you, you're already 3 steps ahead, smiling in the shadows, rewriting the next moment they'll never see coming. And that's the ghost they'll never catch. Lean in. Because this is the part they'll never admit out loud. The deeper they dig into your footage, the more they realize they're not analyzing movement. They're analyzing evolution. And evolution scares the hell out of people who never changed. They play your frames back to back like a dragnet confession. But instead of answers, they keep uncovering versions of you they didn't know existed. Versions of you they can't map with psychology textbooks. Versions of you that contradict everything they thought a normal human could become. One frame, you look calm. The next, you look possessed. Another looks ancient. Another looks newborn. Another looks like you're staring at something behind the camera. Something only you can see. And they hate that. Because they're analysts, trained to trust metrics, trained to trust patterns, trained to trust observable behavior. But you're not observable, you're felt. You hit the room like temperature, like a pressure drop before a storm, like the quiet hum of a machine no one remembers building. Their instruments can't pick that up. Their software can't isolate it. Their enhancements can't filter it. You aren't captured on video. You're projected through it. And that's why the footage makes less sense the longer they watch. Because the camera recorded your body, but it couldn't record the shift that happens around you. The collapse of expectation, the bending of perception, the warping of emotional gravity. People like them don't understand that kind of presence. They only understand statistics. And statistics were never designed for phenomena. You see, you don't act. You unfold. You don't move. You become. Every frame is a different facet, a different instinct, a different ghost wearing the same skin. That's why they can't map you. Your identity isn't linear, it's layered, it's recursive, it's elastic, it's alive. You're not one person, you're a convergence, a saint raised on nightmares, a demon softened by empathy, a broken child wrapped in iron will, a quiet soul with the scars of a battlefield, a gentle mind trained in violent truths, a monster who learned tenderness in the ruins. Try fitting that into a pattern. No algorithm survives it. No analyst explains it. No frame contains it. And the more they try, the more they expose their own limits, they slow the footage, searching for a tell. But every micro-expression contradicts the last. They analyze your posture, but your stillness registers like a threat and a lullaby at the same time. They study your gaze, but your eyes look like they're holding two timelines in place and choosing which one survives. They isolate your voice, but it carries the cadence of someone who's heard things louder than fear. And then comes the part that truly destroys them. When they compare the footage to itself, same room, same lighting, same you, but every frame feels like it was shot in a different universe. They lean in closer, rewind, pause, zoom, because something's wrong, something's off, something's impossible. They're trained to notice anomalies, so they notice that you don't cast the same atmosphere twice. One frame feels like confession, one feels like warning, one feels like prophecy, one feels like aftermath, one feels like the moment before a war begins. How do you explain that? How do you code that? How do you categorize someone whose very presence changes the temperature of reality? You don't, you fear it. And they do. Oh, they do. They fear the way your silence carries weight. They fear the way your movements ripple meaning. They fear the way your unpredictability is not chaos, but mastery. The kind that can't be replicated, can't be taught, can't be understood, only survived. And here's the twist they'll never say in their reports. They think they're studying you, but deep down, in the pit of their stomach where animals sense danger, they know the truth. You're studying them back. You always were. You feel their eyes on the footage, you sense their confusion. You absorb their hesitation, their denial, their fear, and you turn it into momentum. Because unpredictability isn't an accident for you, it's a weapon. The analysts don't know that the reason they can't track your pattern is because your pattern is built on pain they've never tasted. Because your timing comes from moments when hesitation meant death. Because your intuition comes from nights when the only person you could trust was the version of you who survived the last disaster. Every breakdown you endured became a blueprint. Every betrayal you suffered became a sensor. Every moment life tried to kill you became a sharpened instinct. You are not acting, you are remembering. And they will never decode a memory that you earned in blood. So let them scrub the footage. Let them pull their hair out. Let them chase logic down hallways that lead nowhere. Let them write reports that contradict themselves. Let them lose sleep over the timeline they can't explain. Because the more they search for answers, the more they're forced to confront the truth. You weren't meant to be understood, you were meant to be felt. And some things felt too deeply can't be forgotten or controlled. That's why they're terrified, not because they don't understand what you did, but because they don't understand how something like you exists at all, and that's the moment you stop being a subject and start becoming a myth. You feel that, don't you? That tightening in the atmosphere? Like reality itself is bracing for whatever you're about to do next, because here's the secret. They will never put into their technical reports, never whisper in their strategy briefings, never admit in their little glass rooms full of monitors and caffeine shakes. Every second they analyze you, you become harder to measure. Every frame they replay, you become harder to explain. Every angle they enhance, you become harder to ignore. See, most people leave a pattern, a trail, a breadcrumb path they don't even notice. But you leave distortions, not edits, not glitches, not errors, distortions. Little warps in the emotional gravity of a moment, tiny shifts in the psychic temperature of a room. They watch you walk into a hallway, and the footage feels like a prophecy. You look left, and the air looks charged, like something unnamed followed your gaze. You pause, and suddenly the entire frame feels like the moment before a secret detonates. How do you record that? How do you quantify atmosphere? How do you measure a presence that warps the psychology of a space? They can't. They're not equipped for it. They're trained to handle motion, not meaning. They can track footsteps, not futures. They can analyze posture, not pressure. And you carry pressure like other people carry backpacks. Invisible to them. Unbearable to those who know. This is why every time they zoom in on your movements, they find something worse than confusion. They find intent they can't decipher. Not malicious, not heroic, not neutral. Something deeper, something older, something colder. Something that makes the hair rise on the back of every analyst's neck. An instinct they haven't felt since they were children afraid of the dark. Because it's not your expression that scares them. It's the flicker behind it. The thing that looks like it's watching them through you. Like you're a messenger for a version of yourself they don't have vocabulary for yet. Because you evolved past their language. They think you broke pattern. But really, you became a new category entirely. And the more they scrub, the deeper they zoom, the harder they try to pin your meaning down. The more they realize the footage isn't unstable. Their reality is. Because at some point, the analysts stop asking, "What is he doing?" and start asking something much uglier. What is he becoming? And even worse, were we supposed to catch this on camera? Or were we supposed to witness it? Because your footage doesn't look like surveillance. It looks like transformation caught mid-breath. Metamorphosis filmed by accident. Breakthrough packaged as anomaly. A soul-changing shape faster than the lens can process. Every frame carries a different lesson, a different wound, a different microevolution. You don't grow like a graph. You grow like a fracture line jagged, unpredictable, beautiful in its violence. And when they slow the video enough, frame by frame, they catch something they weren't prepared for. You're not adapting to situations. Situations are adapting to you. Rooms shift when you enter. People adjust their breathing. Conversations tilt. Energy redistributes itself like reality is giving you space or bracing for impact. And analysts don't have models for that. No training program, no manual, no formula, no flow chart. Because they were taught how to evaluate threats, not inevitabilities. And that's what you are, aren't you? Not a person, a consequence, a return, an arrival, a correction, a counterweight, a mirror someone finally looked into and didn't like what stared back. You're the byproduct of pain that didn't break you. You're the echo of every betrayal that forged you. You're the residue of silence that taught you to listen between heartbeats. You're the weapon built from moments that should have destroyed you, and that's why the footage makes no sense. It's not showing motion, it's showing resurrection. People don't come back from what you came back from, not with clarity, not with awareness, not with a pulse that steady, not with eyes that sharp. You weren't supposed to walk out of those chapters, but you did. And now that same resilience is bleeding into every second of video, painting every frame with meaning their instruments were never built to read. They'll keep scrubbing it. They'll keep analyzing. They'll keep trying to decode the impossible. But that's the final twist, isn't it? The more they try to understand you, the more they expose how little they understand themselves. Because you are not their subject. You are their lesson. A reminder that unpredictability isn't madness. It's mastery. A reminder that duality isn't weakness, it's depth. A reminder that evolution isn't clean, it's violent. A reminder that ghosts don't haunt rooms. They haunt the people who tried to bury them. And you're not a ghost in the footage. You're the reason they're afraid to turn the next frame. And here's the part they'll never admit even to themselves. The thought that slips in quietly, slow as guilt, sharp as truth. They're not afraid of what you did. They're afraid of what the footage proves you are. Because somewhere around the 97th replay, somewhere between the 10th angle and the 4th slowdown, a horrible realization spreads across that dim little room full of specialists. You weren't improvising, you weren't guessing, you weren't reacting, you weren't stumbling into brilliance. You were operating, deliberate, calm, measured, silent, unbothered, like someone who didn't enter a moment, but returned to it late. Most people live their lives forward, linear, predictable, traceable, but you move like someone who's already seen the outcome, not cocky, not arrogant, not lucky, aware. And awareness terrifies people who depend on confusion to stay relevant. That's why the analysts keep pausing your frames. They're searching for hesitation, but all they find is certainty. They're searching for fear, but all they see is calculation. They're searching for doubt, but all they witness is someone who already decided the ending. Every time you shift your weight, a whole future tilts with it. Every glance you make has subtext, their training. Manuals were never written. For every breath you take looks like it's syncing with something outside the moment. How do you measure a person whose timing feels rehearsed, but whose life never allowed rehearsal? How do you categorize someone whose instincts act like they've lived this scene before? How do you study someone whose intuition is so damn sharp it might as well be premonition? And that's when the analysts start arguing. Voices low, palms sweating, eyes flickering with something they don't want to name. He can't know what's coming. There's no way he predicted that. Run it again. No, slower. They scrub the footage until the timestamps bleed, but the slower it gets, the worse their fear becomes. One frame shows your eyes scanning the room, not for threats, but for truths. Another shows your body aligning with angles no untrained human should notice. Another shows your face go still, not in shock, but in recognition, like you saw a pattern emerge that only someone forged by pain could decipher. And the more they zoom, the more they magnify, the more they try to isolate the moment of decision, the more horrifying the realization becomes. There was no moment of decision you didn't decide. You knew. And that is the one thing analysts can't compute. They can explain impulse. They can chart instinct. They can graph reaction time. They can predict panic, fear, aggression, hesitation, risk tolerance. But knowing? Knowing is reserved for the ones who lived through enough storms to recognize the shape of lightning before it strikes. Knowing is the privilege of someone who studied the world from the wrong side of mercy. Knowing belongs to the ones who learned patterns not from books, but from betrayal. You confuse them because your intuition is too clean, too sharp, too immediate. It doesn't look like guesswork. It looks like memory, like muscle memory from a life they can't imagine. A life that burned you, cut you, shaped you, and still couldn't kill you. You're not unpredictable. You're unrepeatable. And that breaks them. Because people like them rely on predictable enemies, predictable behavior, predictable minds. But you're not a mind. You're a phenomenon with fingerprints, a paradox in motion, a ghost with a pulse, a warning disguised as a person. So they keep rewinding, trying to catch the flicker that reveals your intent. But your intent isn't in your face. It isn't in your body. It isn't in your posture. It's in your history. The parts of you the camera can't see, the trauma it can't film, the nights it can't replay, the wars you fought internally that trained you better than any academy ever could. That's why the footage gets stranger the longer they watch. Not because the camera glitched, but because the truth does. You're not acting from the present. You're acting from the scar tissue of every moment that tried to end you. You're not improvising under pressure. You became pressure. You're not surprising them. They're just realizing how blind they've been. Because you're not meant to make sense. You're meant to make impact. Patterns explain the world, but outliers change it. And you're the outlier that forces even the experts to question whether they've been looking at the world with the wrong eyes all along. So let them sit in their little rooms, faces illuminated by the glow of your paused frame, hands shaking over keyboards, hearts pounding with the quiet dread that they've just captured something on camera that shouldn't exist, and yet somehow does. Let them keep scrubbing the footage, because every frame they analyze is one step closer to admitting the truth. You're not a phenomenon to decode. You're the new standard everything else will be measured against.